Okay, think about this. What if I told you that there was an invisible layer between a building and its surroundings? This layer, not normally recognized, is a zone of spatial and sensory filtering, a zone of safety that contributes to a sense of well-being. Wow! Are you convinced? Okay, the original basis for my thoughts on this subject came from the book Defensible Space by Oscar Newman. This book offered theories on how perceived ownership around the places where people live could contribute to better outcomes regarding crime safety, with the bonus of offering an improved sense of well-being for those who lived in these places. Over time, the term defensible space has also come to describe other safety and security zones around buildings, especially here in California. Defensible space can describe a protective zone around a building inside an extreme fire hazard area, or for that matter, any resiliency challenge place. Here's my eureka moment. I think this notion of zones around buildings can take into account so much more than specific designs for proactive protection. These zones can be applied to any number of different issues, and they can apply to all number of building types for any number of reasons. It's an idea that goes way beyond making a safe house. As people, we understand that a controlled environment gives us an invisible layer that allows a sense of well-being and order. A more general way to describe what this layer does is that this layer provides a transition space between the public and the private realm. Okay, for short, let's call it layer of transition. I was pretty excited when I started to think about the characteristics of zones around buildings, besides just the notion of safety. The so-called sense of well-being can give you a clue as to where this concept could expand. The first thing that comes to my mind is the transition zones have the power to control the sensory characteristics within and around a building. Through built or natural elements, light or views may be blocked or emphasized. Or sound can be baffled and masked or even amplified if one desired it. When a designer starts to realize what this zone can do, new possibilities emerge regarding shaping the characteristics of space around a building. Even in the most limited spaces, in very constrained areas, views and light may be provided beyond what we usually expect. In turn, blocking views and light can offer privacy, security, and the screening of nasty stuff. In places that are more secluded, it may be easier, but I believe that it's no less important to consider the things you can do with this zone. Turning things around from the public side, looking from the outside in, these principles can be just as important. My key point is, doing a few key things around buildings can greatly enhance the feeling of control and accommodation for the people within. Properly designed transition zones can give special qualities to even the most humble of residences. What I'm suggesting doesn't just apply to residential environments. Recall the workplaces or stores or restaurants where spaces around these places are well considered. Inside activities may be observable from the public place in a limited way, yet the inhabitants within these spaces should still feel completely comfortable with this limited exchange. At first glance, this quality may not seem that important of a concept. Planners, building owners, and architects, by and large, don't give this opportunity as much consideration as it deserves. Buildings and cities are better when the spaces between structures are thoughtfully considered and designed. Both public places, the outdoor rooms, and private places, the environments within buildings, have different but complementary interests. Someone inside of a building wants to be able to absorb the view, to be able to look out and observe while mostly not being seen. Someone passing by on the outside wants to observe and appreciate the life within the building without intruding. The more public a building's function is, then the desire and even the need to see out and look in increases. Buildings with the proper degree of porosity are a gift to the street. The activities that may be reasonably observed from the outside add great interest to the surrounding public place. Ideally, there is an additional sense of safety both from within a building as well as the outside surrounded space, if we got our design right. It's always great to walk around a series of buildings along a street and to be able to tell what's going on inside the buildings as one progresses. It makes for a fun walk. It helps passing by become a pleasure. And it has the additional benefit of getting people out to walk more. This makes for what I would call a gifted street. And a gifted street can add to the sense of well-being to all those who inhabit these buildings along the way and to the community as a whole. Let's more accurately describe the physical characteristics of this layer. It is a physical space, a yard, or a portion of the sidewalk with a built or landscape element or elements to control the connection between the public and private. Imagine a living unit that we are giving these special qualities. It has the benefit of having a well-considered layer that surrounds it, taking into account all the natural and constructed characteristics that surround the space. This layer takes into account the vista of a hill in the distance and a nice view towards the street below. It affects the shape of the building wall, and it influences window configuration to take full advantage. It also considers a neighbor's window that's in close proximity and the ugly power line that's beyond. Designing this layer means to architecturally block these undesirable elements. I've just touched on the sense of sight. Designing this layer also should consider all the senses, especially sound. The elements we use to filter the sensory can contribute to the architecture of each building. They can also contribute to the overall design of the public space. Ultimately, the larger outdoor room is something our building is helping to create. These transitional filtering elements are part of the negotiation between the public and private. They're part of a well-considered dialogue between the public and private that addresses an often forgotten part of the design of urban and not-so-urban experiences. As we discuss more of the specifics of building cities in a crafted way, we'll get into a lot of what makes these transitionary spaces work and in what way they can be of some benefit. Admittedly, this may seem like a pretty arcane issue, but stick with me for future videos. This is a pretty rich topic. We